Our dear good friend, Professor John Mearsheimer, joins us now. Professor Mearsheimer, I know you're much in demand. Thanks so much for the time that you give us. I do want to talk to you about what if Gaza escalates? What if Ukraine escalates? But because I follow you and I know what you say in other venues, I want to start on another subject about which, of course, you are expert. You're expert in so many. Can China rise peacefully?
Well, my argument has long been that war between the United States and China is not inevitable. I want to be clear on that. But my argument is that as China became more powerful economically and militarily, it would try to dominate Asia, and the United States would try to prevent that. And the end result is you would get an intense security competition that would be very dangerous. I thought that this was inevitable. I think if you look at the history of great power politics, what's happening between the United States and China is predictable. So I think what we have now taking place is an intense security competition. But security competitions of this sort are always very dangerous. And if you look at what's happening in the South China Sea as we talk here, there is all sorts of reasons to be concerned that this might escalate from a security competition to a shooting war.
When you say security competition, are you talking about hegemony, absolute control over a certain geographic area and the power to exclude the others? Would that be a fair definition?
Yeah, I think that's a fair definition of what I would call regional hegemony. My argument is that great powers want to dominate their region of the world. If you look at the United States of America, we are a hegemon in the Western Hemisphere. There is no country in this hemisphere that would even countenance attacking the United States. And this is the ideal position from a security point of view. Most Americans take this for granted. They don't think about it. But the fact is, when the United States got started after it got its independence in 1783, it was a very vulnerable country. And the elites who ran this country up until today went to great lengths to achieve regional hegemony and to maintain it.
All right, enough of that. I look a little frazzled. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And sure enough, yesterday when I banged my foot, I triggered an attack of gout. So I now have it in both feet. My poor dog couldn't get a walk this morning because I couldn't walk. But luckily the medicine is kicking in and, you know, maybe it'll all work out just fine. What else? The stocks are, Ham's ready to come on, but I'm going to try to get this number of viewers to go up a little bit before I let him know that my computer is up and running. I do call your attention to the scores around the league. Our CRT's up 23 cents at 221. Well, now it's at the bid. It's just going from bid to ask, but it's 221. I think for all the world, that stock's about to break out. That's how the chart reads to me. That's our CRT. And then Finger is up 3.6. That's at 308. And Ham will come on like a hard charging train. The other couple, 3 stocks are all in the red somewhat. And I'll let Ham talk about those because I pretty much said I would not. GTII is 9.5 cents. I'm going to take action myself in that here shortly, and I'll let you know how that all goes. My understanding is they have or almost have the 10%, and they're ready to go forward. So this is all good news for possible management change. And I know that the criminals are going to come on here and try to get us to be negative about that. Just to be clear, GTII is a complete round trip. When I first heard about the stock, it was in the teens, like somewhere between 10 and 20 cents. And it went all the way to $9. So it went from 9 cents to $9. That's a 100% move. So it was a pretty good call. It's just that couldn't get it over that line where it turned into a buy-in frenzy on Wall Street. And they pulled out all the stops. And here we are, a complete round trip. The GTII CEO has to go, and then we can see what we can do. What else? GME was up earlier, still is. GME is up $7, $7.20 to $38.94, almost $40. It was as high as 44. And I sure hope those of you who are bullish are right, and it just really runs for you. I'd love to see somebody come on here and say they made millions of dollars in a trade in GME. My own caution is, I think they're just managing this. And as people rush in, they're getting out and they're moving the shorts and all that. All right, here we go. Yes. Hello? Hello?
Hello,
Yeah. Is that your dog in the background?
William.
Yeah, I'm here. Sounded like your dog in the background. Are you there?
Call ended. Call from Andy.
Hello?
William,
I'm here. I'm here.
are you live?
Yeah, I'm live. You're live.
I just want to let you know, William, I went to the doctor today. My EKG is perfect. Blood pressure perfect. 120 over 80. I'm ready to rock and roll in case I have to get knee surgery in September for my knee.
Did they test
So-
you for sanity?
No, they think I'm Santa Claus.
Insanity.
Anyway, just people that Richard Hoffman is he's live right now, putting up a video on GTII. Go pay attention. If you want to hear about GTII, go there, watch what he's saying. He's quarterbacking the whole thing, so pay attention. It's been described to me as a corporate takeover. They're taking over the company, and it kicked the CEO to the curb for doing nothing. So let him handle it. He's a great attorney, and big holders that I know are with him, and that's what's going on. All right. Is it okay? We can move past that one now, William. That's good enough.
Well, I'll talk to you about it later, but it's good enough live.
All right. There's nothing to say. It's right there. I can't say anything more. Get the management out, and things will rock and roll. I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but Richard is right on the front lines. If you like me to help Richard, I'm not an attorney. I would not understand any of the legal mumbo jumbo. So that's why I keep my nose out of it. I do understand stock trading, though. And while I was at the doctor, someone told me that GameStop was trading up to 44. And I actually told him that I would be a put buyer, only because it was moving up slow all day, William. And it's very different squeeze than before. It's very orchestrated. I just have this feeling that, Wall Street's a pretty slick gang of people. They're not stupid. And, for investors, all I can tell you is be careful, because they always have a trick up their sleeve, whatever it may be. But hedge funds are the ones that are moving the stock back and forth. Retail's slipping in, and they're the ones that are running through the bullets, and you got to be careful. Again, I hope it goes to 1,000 for everybody. If it does go, William, and this was my conversation with a friend just a few minutes ago, they will break the backs of the market makers, the guys that have these short positions. This will break their backs. So I'm sure they're scrambling and formulating a plan to not get their backs broken. And you say, well, what makes you say that? Well, there's so many stocks that are huge naked shorts. For example, I posted this morning the data on Wolf is 1.5 billion shares short. Kodak over north of 1 billion shares short. Who knows what MULN, Northwest Bio, CBM, all these companies. And it's funny, only 3 stocks move. KOSS, all right, AMC, and GameStop. Again, somebody has put these 3 together. I think it's the same hedge funds. And I think they are manipulating the 3 together, which is okay with me. Still kill them all day long. I could care less. But it's so funny that my vision as the number 1 stock to be squeezed would be DJT because of the powerful people behind it. I don't own it. I'm sticking to my guns on finger motion, but DJT to me is, why isn't that moving? Why does it keep being sold into? Not even big volume, 960,000 shares. They're sending letters to the NASDAQ. They got hearings getting there to get set up and to make things happen. Trump is going to roast these people alive. And yet no one talks about it but us. It doesn't even make any sense. I'm just going by based on my gut feeling that is the leader. And that's why Finger Motion, we attached ourselves to Finger Motion, to DJT, and have offered to help out DJT. The GameStop thing is Roaring Kitty. Whatever the fuck he is, it's Roaring Kitty. Good luck. Make it, but he's not quarterbacking that thing. There's hedge funds squeezing it. Excuse me, and I told you many times before, hedge funds smell blood. They can see, you can feel they want to take the stock higher. So what are they doing? They're buying calls, tickling it up, buying 100,000, 200,000 at the market. The stock pops, they sell all their calls, and then they start over again. That's what they're doing. I mean, I can see it. I've watched people do it. It's an easy game when you got the money to go behind it. Retail is not moving that stock, buying 200, 500 shares of a $40 stock. There's no way that retail is moving that stock. So that's what I have to say about that one. Although I cheer it on. Break Citadel, kill Virtue, kill all these Jane Street, kill them all, take all their money. I'm with you on that. But as far as investing as an individual, be careful. I know you're cheering and everyone's happy. Like I said, if you bought calls, you can flip them, buy cheaper calls, and take money off the table. Let's say the 35 calls, let's say the 40 calls in GameStop for this week, they were just over $4. And now stock's below 39 again. So they go from in the money to $4 or $5 back down to wherever the hell they are. I don't even know where they are, but I'm just saying options trade quickly. As the value goes up, it goes down super fast. Those options are plus $3.40 now. I don't know what the high was. But again, these things are moving all over the place. There's 59,000 of the 40 calls that are traded. All right, so be careful. A lot of people looking to trade these things. Again, the only reason I'm not playing it because I don't believe in chasing things. If I was playing it, I buy calls, the cheap calls, and see you later. I wouldn't even look. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I don't lose. That's how I look at it. Any other questions, William?
Yeah, well, it's good that you talked about GME. I guess Roaring Kitty is going live tomorrow, whatever.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
11. So I guess it'll be noon.
It's like President Biden going live. He'll have more viewers than Biden.
I hope.
What could he possibly say? Hey, everybody, just chill. I bought calls. Everyone's pissed off at me, and I hope it goes higher. And we're just bulldozing these people down by buying calls. Good luck.
Vin is saying that Ace is being threatened. They're threatening his life. Terrible. But They did that to me and have done it, but not now. But I guess that means ACE is effective.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's
Well,
terrible.
let me hang up and let me call him up and see what's going on. I'll call you right back.
All right, all right.
Call ended.
I didn't mean to make him drop off, but that's terrible. I want to talk to you guys about. Oh, I didn't print it out. I just put it here. So I have to find it. Anyway, you know, some of these stocks seem to be moving, and GameStop's up 7.5. Wow. GTII is up 0.0029. Very interesting. You know, this RCRT, I have a chart to show you if I can find it, but its bid is 215 and its ask is 227. That's pretty strong. The volume isn't huge, 88,000, but I think that's right on the verge of breakout city for whatever reason. And it's a nice day. It's up 23 cents. It's one of those stocks that doesn't look like it's going to go back down right away. I'll see if I can find the chart. Of course, my computer has that spinning wheel of Apple slow death. So I might not be able to show it to you right away. Hey, lucky boy. So I saw that interest rates are coming down in Canada and in Europe, and I don't know if they're going to follow through here. I also saw Janet Yellen speaking before Senator Kennedy. She doesn't have a lot of light bulbs going on up there, or she plays dumb anyway. I don't know how we can lower rates because we need confidence in our dollar and in our bond market. But if the trend now is to lower interest rates, the central banks have spoken. They're going to inflate this problem away. And that means all of your ideas about gold and platinum and silver and oil and gas and buying cornfields and buying water and all of that, all of it makes sense. All of it. Because it means our dollar is going down. It's already down, as you know. Already down. Let me see. I'm trying to find something to show you, and I will. Okay, it's that's not it. That is not it. That's not it. Oh, here, maybe this is it. Yeah, 2355. All right, 2355 and 2356. Whenever I get a computer that works, I'll be much better at this. Doesn't show up yet. 2355 doesn't show up yet. So I might have to do it after Ham comes back on. Let me see if I can find it now. 2335. That's not it. 23. 5.5. No, it's not there. All right, can't do it. Can't do it. I don't know. I haven't traded his stocks, but I think he does hard work and his heart's in the right place. It's a tough space to be in, as we know. Hey, Dr. McLevin. Ham will be back, I'm sure, after he talks to yeah, Ham will be back. Don't worry. Don't worry. Not 2 p.m. live. Yeah, that's exactly right. Is he live on YouTube? Let me see if I can find him.
Call from Andy.
These guys were going to take it out of business. At least that was the direction it was heading. This is in my
Call from Andy.
getting screwed, and
Call from
together a case and enough interest to act. Anyway, everybody out there, be well, take care. I will talk to you soon. If you have questions, put them in there. Anyway, have a great day. And obviously, I'll keep you updated as we go on. And again, if anybody has questions, specific questions about the agreement or the declaration, let me know. But please review it so you know about it. But in the end, I kind of described it. There should be no financial obligation except if at some point in time you decide you want a financial obligation. Otherwise, move on from there. Anyway, be well, take care.
All right, I took care of Ace for everybody. Happy, William?
Yeah.
So I took care of that. So some idiot was threatening him. I have him reaching out to Mark Bazile, get him to the FBI, put it up on Twitter, I said, and we'll expose that character and we'll take care of that. That it's ridiculous that, listen, no one is making you hit a button to buy anything. We can only report what we see. All right. And what I see is complete fraud everywhere. And, it's just remarkable that the SEC has done nothing. We put the truck in front of the SEC 15 times. What more can we do? You got proof from the NSCC or the /DTC that there's a concentrated short position. The crooks got caught. As I read, it's endless. What can we possibly do? We can't possibly do anything else. So again, let me just talk about finger motion. This morning I got up at 7:00, William, and I posted at 7:11 this morning. They had a bid in for 75,100 shares at $290. I put it up immediate. This was like right out of the get-go. They were spoofing. So I had some people go in front of him to put 100 shares at 291. Then they moved up to 293 for, I think it was 13,000. And then we put 100 shares in front of him at 294. And at that point, they succumbed and they stopped playing games. But the real thing about it is looking at the offer, which was $315 for 100 shares. This is early in the morning. And for those who don't understand, if there's such big buyers around, would you want to care that why would you sell 100 shares at $315? If you want to sell it, you just sell it. But they were offering it there for a reason. And the reason being that as soon as the market opened up, or they started moving down to 315 to 314 to 313. It's the same stupid patterns every day. They're trying to con you into selling. That's what it is. That's it. That's just 100% where it is. The stock trades up to 326, and they've been doing the cha-cha. I left, the buy was 145, 141 or something like that. We're up to 220,000. I'm going to say that 90% of the volume today is fake. Maybe 80, I'm sorry, make it 80, 160. That's how stupid this is. It's just going back and forth, selling it back and forth to each other. When a stock has no seller, it shouldn't be trading. It shouldn't be moving down. It should be just go to sleep and it trades when it trades, correct? It doesn't have activity every second. So again, this morning's action, there is something going on because they're doing some weird things early in the morning, like at 7 o'clock in the morning. If you're a West Coast person, you probably miss it all. If you're East Coast, you're probably saying, I don't get up until 8. Only the idiots get up real early and do this stuff. But that's how you study what they're doing, all right? And that's what I've been trained to do, is study the movements of the criminals. And it's easy to see. It's a pain in the ass to do it all day long. It's not, it sucks doing it. But if I don't figure it out, we'll never understand what they're doing. So I keep track of them that way. I have a bunch of people looking at it. And, the SEC can't see this manipulation. It's a disgrace. It's just remarkable how stocks go down with no selling. And an example, look at GDC. It looks great, 123. Now it's 109 to 114 on 87,000. After going up on 500,000. So William, all the theories on look at the volume that's good for it, it's not true. All that good buying that came into the stock yesterday, and all of a sudden it's right down, almost down, 10 cents already from what happened yesterday. Anyway, I'm just looking at GameStop, and I'm looking at the calls and the puts is so much money for this week. The 40 calls of almost $6, but the puts of $4.45. No one wants to sell anything. It's basically telling me that there's no one really doing anything here. What do you think of that, William?
I think they're doing something.
No. Market makers, people are not shorting it like they were doing it before. It's like the SEC told everyone, hey, back off, don't short it. Let them walk it up. And that's what they're doing. And I posted this before. This is the perfect march up on a short squeeze. This is what I like to see. But this is not short covering. These are longs trying to buy it to move it higher. Remember, the
$41 on GME.
You need more
10 cents on GTII, 311 on Finger, and the one that begins with a Z is in the green.
Really? Now look at that. 52,000 shares. That's not going anywhere.
And DJT is
Down.
a convicted criminal.
Down 88 cents.
DJT is a convicted felon.
So you tell me, looking at DJT, it's got Donald Trump and Devin Nunes as your stars, and the stock is down. They've written letters demanding blue sheets investigations. They sent to NASDAQ. They're demanding hearings, and the stock is down 88 cents. GameStop has Roaring Kitty, and it's going up. How? What is he doing that's making it go up? I have no idea. And I hope
He
it
is
works.
just a way of communicating because they shut down WhatsApp. I'm telling you, it's just a way of ringing a bell to all the criminals. Hey, it's time to run it up. bring the suckers in, and then we'll do a deal and we'll drive it back down again. That's my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. I hope everybody makes $1 million.
Well, listen, I want to see them blow up the market makers. It'd be great. Ken Griffin gets blown up, all these guys. But remember, Patrick Burns said a long time ago, Ken Griffin's the Fed. One of his
Oh,
videos.
God. Now I'm getting it from the other direction. G is saying, you told me the stock is bullshit. That's not my words. I've never called a stock bullshit. You don't
What
know
stock did you
David
get?
Reichman. You don't know what he's doing. So what if it's going down? I don't know. I can't please you fudsters.
William, stop. Tell him to call Richard Hoffman up and support what we're trying to do. That's it. There's nothing he can do.
Yeah.
There's no reason to argue. There's nothing we can do. If he's got a gripe, go to the SEC with the pictures of the truck and go file a whistleblower complaint. I have 4 people do it today. We can't do anything about it. We've threw the kitchen sink at this thing.
Here's Roger's point on what's his name? What's this guy? Flying Dutchman, the guy that's Roaring Kitty. Roger says he's forcing brokers to locate shares to cover his call options. Yeah, could be.
This is a guy that didn't know what he was doing sitting in a basement. Now he's doing sophisticated trades to force settlement. Good luck. My opinion on this whole thing is they're not going to allow this guy and whoever's backing him, okay, whoever his partner is, to expose Wall Street to what's going on. I'm for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm with you. But I wouldn't doubt if what's going on, they'll send over law enforcement and drag him out. I mean, for manipulation or something to shut him down. I think he should just disappear, take his money and move on. We're stuck here because we didn't make our money yet. No way to go. We're here to expose what we want to
I don't
do.
know.
Okay.
By the way, G, I don't know David Reichman. You're 100% right. I don't know him. I never claimed to.
William, if you're going to talk about that stock, I'm getting off. Richard Hoffman is handling it. I do not want to get in a pissing war with people. We have nothing to do with it. If you want to support to throw him out, call Richard Hoffman up. He put a video up about it.
Yeah, we were
That's it.
trying to
There's nothing-
listen to the end of it.
All right, well, there's nothing to go there. Do I have to put up all the stuff we've done? GTII, the truck. We did everything. The guy Lou sent everyone in to go buy it because he thought it was going to be the next GameStop, just chugging it along. And those people, when the stock came in, it came in late. Most of the people I know owned it below $3, $4. Anyone who sold it, they called me up. They bought it. They made 7 and put 5 back in, and it's still +2. That's trading. That's just what happens. You get winners, you get losers. We cannot stop security fraud. I've told you that 1,000 times. So again, we can't do anything about it. Stop responding to it. Send them to Richard Hoffman. If they have stock, tie it up with Richard Hoffman so we can kick out the CEO. I forget how many shares we need to go. I think there was somebody with 8 million shares that was going to sign up. And, the big boys are helping us out here. And it's right there. What that gentleman's doing, he's decided not to read or watch a video. He's just going to yell at us. That's what he's going to do. But that's his business. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
What else, William? So I was talking about finger motion.
People are, of course, you're always wrong. I mean, you never called it. No, just kidding. People are pointing out, I'm teasing you, that Wolf is having a good day. It's up 43 cents.
Wolf is, I met the people at Wolf, great people, smart as shit, the smartest people I met. They build nuclear power plants. They got they started Riot Blockchain. They started, what's the other one? Riot and Mara. They started both of those, these guys. They're smart. They're the brains behind this whole thing. And the stock has been targeted by Yorkville. They had a debenture with them. My friends paid it off a long time ago. And there's still, the short is, from what the data I see is 1.5 billion. So I haven't really watched it that closely for the last 5 months. Let's say they bought back 500 million. I don't know. I'm just making a number up. There's still a billion shares short. Kodak is another stock. That's another big short. That stock has been creeping up to the year high is 634. It's at 576 today. All right. So when you talk about the shorts getting squeezed, I just went through a bunch of stocks and, I don't see the pressure. It's just on one stock, GameStop, AMC, and KOSS. I mean, it's the same 3 stocks. How did they all become tied together? That's the strangest thing I've ever seen. Not only tied together, they're tied together by 4 years. So that tells me the same people that squeezed it in February 2020, GameStop and all these names, are doing it again. Again, it's the same people. Which is okay with me. Kill them. I could kill less. I know a lot of people made money, a lot of money the first time around. All right, the second, third time here, my friends are moving to the sideline.
Dave M., I'll answer that question after Ham signs off. He doesn't want me talking about it, so we'll leave it alone for now.
Listen, William, for Dave M., Richard Hoffman will be glad to talk to you. Please call him up. My friends are supporting to throw the CEO out. What would you like us to do? So stop harassing William about the same stupid questions.
So what's your update on the 2 stocks that your daughter owns one of? And
Not
Call from James R.
something, they hold it down again. It's the same cha-cha we've seen before. I believe that, I don't know which one's going to go first. I was told ZJYL, but now it looks like GDC is going to go.
I mean, if you believe in the charts, it looks like GDC is about to run, baby, run.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is these things have a tendency to go in pre-market. So if you are sound asleep, I don't think you can put a good till cancel order in the pre-market. But a lot of times these things open up like $10, $12 pre-market.
Right.
And that's where you can make your sale. So, get up if you're in those names, be aware of it. And, don't fall asleep on it. Take advantage of it. I hope it goes. We want to make sales in GDC 10, 12, 14, 18, and take that money and buy more finger. That's what my plan is. That's exactly what I want to do. If GDC goes, my friends, I believe, okay, I don't have exact count, own 4 million shares of GDC that purchased over time. And you're going to say, oh, you're full of shit. Okay, I just gave you my opinion, what my friends own in GDC. And I believe it's around 4 million shares. That's not even counted what my friends own, my bigger friends own. I believe they probably own 2 or 3 million more. So the whole company's owned by a small group of people. When's it going to go? I don't know. I wish it would have went already. I didn't think it was going to be here for I didn't think it was a 6-month trade. So that's, it is what it is.
Who is carrying water for Lynn Partners? Their interest payments have to get paid. Maybe it's Jeffries. Maybe Jeffries took it over.
Listen, I was talking to a friend of mine from Miami, and he was a market maker, a very sharp guy, close to the dark side in the world. And he said these guys got some serious problems because they're doing a lot of stuff, international wires and, all these cross-border transactions. He believes they have to be doing it through that guy in Australia. That guy has something to do with it. It could be set up in Australia. They short from Australia to the UK to Canada, the Canada to the US. They have all these different avenues to make it short. He believes it's got something to do with that guy in Australia. I don't know. I don't have the.
Well, it's certainly a lot of money that they did a lot of resource deals in Australia. And John Hancock's mother is Gina Reinhardt, and she's the wealthiest person in Australia, all mining. So maybe he's the
Well, listen,
kingpin.
He's up to.
He's certainly the black sheep of their family.
All right. Well, he's up 220%. So, how much longer can he do it, right?
Here, this guy has a good question. It shows that not everybody that asks a question is as ignorant as I am. Anthony's asking, how the heck is Finger trading within a penny all day? That's a great question, Anthony.
It is a great question. And that's the type of stuff that tells you that they're close to folding because it's impossible to do this type of stuff. This is a way, you got to look for the signs that show that they're in trouble. And that is one of the signs. I told you yesterday, I told everyone a few times that they need volatility. No volatility, and that's how they die. And the volatility is gone away, right?
Right. And do you think they're trying to move trades from LLC to LLC, or they just can't do anything? It's hopeless.
I think it's hopeless.
Yeah.
Listen, we're watching it in real time.
Yeah.
Their problem is the company's real. Right?
Exactly right.
That's
And the company doesn't need to go back to Jeffrey Lind for any more money. They can't do any more damage. They took their shot.
Well, William, you know what? GameStop raised tons of money. Maybe the company should raise the money. Maybe the new trend on Wall Street is dilution. Dilution makes the stocks go up now. How does that work? Right? Dilution, William?
Yeah, no, I'm listening. I'm trying to remember the
I'm saying all of a sudden, we're all looking for an event to make the stock go up, right? GameStop went up. The company sold 45 million shares at $20. The stock is doubled. Now everyone is now all these people are applauding that they raised money. I don't know. What is it? I was always taught dilution, it hurts the public companies. Try not to get diluted because every toxic lender is diluting a company. But some reason GameStop, they love it. I don't know. Got me.
Dilution isn't the solution it used to be.
It's not the solution. That's exactly right. And like AMC, no matter what we say here, that guy diluted the company to death. And he's got a big business. He needs rents, buildings, this, that. It's a tough business. I love the movie business. I mean, I love going to the movies. But, these guys, Wall Street wants him dead, and he's helping them out. He raised a lot of money. What's he doing now? Selling popcorn? I mean, come on.
So
we asked the guy to do things to help the shareholders out. He didn't do anything. He couldn't kill us. Right, but
this is an operational question from somebody that doesn't know the answer, obviously. Can Roaring Kitty exercise his call options before 621?
Yes.
I'm not an option guy. Thank you.
You can exercise them at any time you like. The big question is,
how are you going to pay for it?
How do you pay for it? It's a $40 stock. So with the exercise, let's say it's $20. He has to exercise the stock. He has to come up with $20. Think about that. Right?
Yeah.
He has to exercise his options. That means he has to pay for it. That's why people buy options. For those who don't understand it, they buy options for one reason. So they don't have the money. That's why we buy options. It's more leverage. That's what options are about.
So Reggie Dog thinks all of this GME movement is, I guess, buzz. It's newsworthy for the DC hearings, which will really put a stake through their hearts. Maybe. I don't know when the hearings are. They're working on it.
I mean, the earnings of the company?
No, sorry, the hearings. I said maybe I said earnings. I meant to say hearings. I don't know when the hearing is. I might have, I'm out of it. I might have said earnings. I didn't mean to.
No, I just look at it saying, okay, these guys have a big problem, and I don't know how you solve it. I think that the stock is moving up on buying. It becomes a pyramid scheme at this level now. For the stock to go high, if the shorts aren't buying it, then who's buying it? It's other longs have to keep buying it. And I don't think the hedge funds are going to keep chasing it because they don't see the shorts covering.
Right.
If the shorts aren't covering, before when the stock went like this, they would just keep going. And they halt it and they do this and they do that. I don't see that anymore. It's got a totally different look.
Right.
I mean, that's what I think. I don't know. But yeah.
Let's see what comments are accruing. Yeah, one guy's saying you have the option. Let's see. At 42, he could sell half of the calls and exercise the rest. That's a good point. If his goal is to try to cause pressure on the stock, I suppose.
Listen, what I would do if I was him,
I would just roll it to a higher. I roll it to a higher. Anyway,
that's all he has to do. If he sells 50,000 calls of the 20s or 30s, whatever he has, and go out and buy 100,000 of the 50s or the 40s, they'll just keep going.
Yeah,
and for those who don't understand it, go back in time and just to show this is done before, go read up on Bear Stearns puts. The stock was 65. Someone bet $3 million that the stock was going to go below 30 in 3 days. $3 million, I think it was. Go read about it. Google it. Bear Stearns puts, P-U-T-S. Go look at that. And tell me what you see there. That's go back and read that. The stock, the put was, it created such a panic, it broke Bear Stearns. And then what happened right behind that? They did the same thing trying to do it to Lehman. What happened to Lehman? They went out then. That's what you can do with options, my friends. Go back and look. It's all right there.
So I guess Roaring Kitty's going live momentarily on YouTube. Go listen to him.
Right.
Go listen to him. I don't.
Go listen, everyone. Go listen to him. William, sign off. Let them go listen to Roaring Kitty and go enjoy the rest of your day. For those who got questions about GTI, please call Richard Hoffman up.
Okay.
Everybody, call Richard Hoffman up. We all want you to call him up. He's our guy. He's taking care of it. Just go with him. What else can we say? He's an attorney. No one's hiding from anything. We want to get rid of the
He
CPO.
sure isn't a comedian.
That's exactly what he is not.
All right.
All right. Go have a good day. That's all you can do.
That's all we can do. Thank you. Bye.
Call ended.
That's the bit. That's the music for the beginning of Marantz rants. He's wearing a motorcycle helmet, as soon as he comes on, I'll play Roaring Kitty for everyone's delight. You're right, Ham. He doesn't know Billy. He doesn't know Billy Ray. He doesn't know the whole story in many stocks. But I think he can trade any stock with the best of them. I don't know what it is. Is it the medicine I'm taking? I don't know what it is. Marantz rants. I won't get you into any new subjects, but I was trying to call your attention to the fact that interest rates are taking tentative steps downward in Canada and Europe. And if Janet Yellen and the Fed try to do that here, my opinion, it's going to be a disaster. The other thing I'm hearing is there may be big new mortgage incentive programs to keep the bubble going in real estate. That too will be devastating. I listened to Senator Kennedy grilling Janet Yellowstain, as Gregory Mannarino calls her. And he pointed out, did Senator Kennedy, he used two different numbers. I'll use the lower one. He said by 2035, our debt will be $51 trillion under the Biden budget. 51 trillion. He also said 55 trillion, but let's just use the lower number, 51 trillion. Well, I think if we go to war, like I've said before, we could be at 100 trillion. This is the way the banks get out of their debt obligations. So anyway, it makes alternative investments like physical gold, silver, palladium, platinum, copper, a bag of acorns. No, don't buy acorns, but you know what I mean. Physical assets, valuable. And it could lead to hyperinflation here. I know the Saudis, apparently the rumor is they're going to move off paying dollars for oil. I don't see that as the end of the world immediately, but it will lead to the end of life as we know it. And that's why I think investments in oil and gold, miners, drillers is going to make sense. Now, on oil prices, they're volatile. Anyone that tries to predict them, it gets very troublesome. I've done it for a long time. I think oil actually could shock people downward. But remember, oil is a paper transaction just like the precious metals. But if we go to war, oil ain't going down. If we lower interest rates and we start spending to buy more student loans, to import more Democratic voters, to do other spending, healthcare and et cetera, for people coming in, I think the bond market is at risk. That's the scary thing. I think it's all going to be okay. Apparently, Biden's over in Normandy, and I think it's cruelty to elderly. I really think it's cruelty. Jill Biden doesn't want to give up power, so she doesn't tell Congress, "Hey, it's time to get rid. Joe's got to go to a home, and let's bring in Kamala." Let's see if he's
$4 today. There is nothing they can do. Maybe Roaring Kitty's going to tell you that tomorrow.
Oh,
When
it's
he's live and
tomorrow.
he says, "Hey guys, I bought 120,000 golf contracts, and who the hell sold it to him?" How the hell could they ever deliver? But, but that's what market makers do, Marantz.
That's Marantz.
That's what market makers do. They just sell stuff and then they figure it out later. Yeah, just give it to them. Don't worry about it. What are we going to give them? $43? Don't worry, it's there. Oh, hey, don't let me just give you the 5-minute ticks. Let's go to the minute, babe. Let's go to the second. Let's go to the 5-second ticks. You guys want to have your heart come out of you, right? Here it is.
I don't.
$43 and some change. Let's go and live on the edge a little.
I don't want to have my heart kicked
Now,
out
I know
of
the
me.
chat's here, and I know you guys are here, and you guys have been here for a long time. I'm going to tell you something. One, thank you for everything you guys do. Thank you for supporting me. You don't have to do it this
Thank
way.
you
guys
for
know
your
that.
service.
But we've been doing this for a long time. And
Thank you for your
I'm just going to
service.
tell you, his stream is going to be nuts. It's going to be wild, and I know everybody's going to be there. I will officially tell you, I will not be there. Okay, I will be watching, but I won't be live streaming. I'm not here to try to take that interaction away from Roaring Kitty himself. I couldn't pull that crowd even if I wanted to. It's not that. I'm working, guys. I'm working. I'm not calling out from work. I go to work every day. I come back.
So
and do it
the
again.
call
I worked at
with
midnight
with
last night,
Roaring
last night,
Kitty
like
is
11:45.
tomorrow.
I
You
worked all
can
the way
go
through to
listen
now.
to
I worked a good 10, 12
Rants
hours.
the
Got
Mance.
home about passed out.
I don't personally think we'll learn anything from him, other than the confirmation that he seems to understand what goes on. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that the bond market is the rub. And if we lose control of that, we ran out of time. But until the bond market collapses, I think the huge amount of liquidity that the Fed is supplying will keep 6 or 7 or 8 stocks going up. And all the lemmings will invest in those stocks. And the market's going to go higher. I think the market's going to go to levels you can't imagine, assuming the bond market doesn't collapse. But on the way up, your emotions are going to be, I can't sell, I can't sell. But I think we should learn one lesson from GTII, from Finger, from other trades. As these things go up, go ahead and take 10%. Go ahead and take 20%. Sell it and buy something else. We looked the other day, and I'd have to look again because when I did look again at one of them, it wasn't the same. But conceptually, let's just argue conceptually, NVIDIA, I'm so sorry. I don't know if it's the medicine. NVIDIA is trading at 72 times earnings. Now, there's a reason for that. NVIDIA the chip business is booming. They apparently have a new chip coming out. Everywhere you look, it's chips. If you look up, it's chips. If you look sideways, look down, everything has a chip. So there's a reason for it. But the question is 72 times earnings the correct number? I've never heard of such a thing in a blue chip stock, but it could be. But counterbalancing that is a company that will not have that kind of growth. Chevron has the same earnings, and it has a dividend. Now, what will make oil stocks go? Higher prices, demand, war. But also, if you own a Chevron and the dollar collapses, Chevron sells oil. It doesn't sell dollar bills. So if Chevron is stuck selling, I don't know, brick basket number 1 for oil, you'll get that benefit. And anyway, these are the ways we have to start thinking. I'm telling you, each of us has to start thinking that we're going to move away from the debt-based system. We're going to stop listening to CNN nonsense and Richard Maddow, and stop getting angry at each other. If I vote for one guy and you vote for one woman, okay, it's America. I respect your right to vote for somebody else. I voted for Michael Dukakis for Lord's asking Lord's forgiveness. Oh, God. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., Roaring said he's going live. All right, so tomorrow, it's interesting. That's Friday, right? So it's going to be a long weekend. He's going to get everything hyped up, prime the pump. If you can't tell, I don't trust it by now. I could be wrong, as one gentleman pointed out. Funny about Cat. If personal data was the worry, it would be we retailers' power whining to Congress. Instead, it's the financial industry. I agree, Mark, and I love your dog. That is a dog that deserves a rub behind one ear, a big pet on the top of the head, and a nose-to-nose sniff. What a great dog. It's a puppy dog. That is a puppy dog. That's great. I'm Billy Ray, you make some money. You make me some. Yeah, we can. We can. I'm going to have to do it some way, members only, Marty. Let me write down your name. I'm going to have to do it maybe a Zoom call. Maybe a Zoom call that I only invite certain people. A lot of the information, Marty, is proprietary, and I don't have permission to share it. But I mean, I can talk about it. I got oral permission. But here on this report, he says, and then I've quoted this report to everybody, but the purpose of this report is to provide a summary of the project. It's dated mid-January. The metallurgical data contained herein is proprietary, confidential, and no authorization is given to disclose the contents of this report without written authorization of the author. I got verbal several times, twice, 3 times, but I feel uncomfortable talking. Talking more specifically, just in general to everybody. But Marty, I will say I've put a lot of emails out yesterday and this morning, and I think the offering is going to close at the end of next week or sooner. That's not I'm not trying to put any pressure. That's not my decision. I would leave it open as long as it takes. But hey, I'm not the boss of them. But I wrote an email this morning to one of the listeners who is apparently going to say he's agreed to send money. Everybody can change their mind. But the timeline on this deal, Marty, is this small raise is going to be now. And literally, I think they will close it next week. However, I really there's a group of investors who have a lot of money. They have a lot of money. And they haven't invested yet. They're kind of on strike. But that's a human reaction. My feeling is they might come in. And if they came in next week, they would probably be given a chance. I would really like you all and myself to participate. I am in it with the grace of a very good person, and I appreciate very much. I own the company. Here's my holdings. These are not the dates of purchase. These are dates the certificates were issued to me. I invested in offerings in to my memory, 2009. It might have been 2007 or 2008, but this is how much I own of it. When you add that up, it's over 1 million shares. I think it's 12.4 or something. And I paid, that goes all the way back to 2009, maybe earlier. And I paid, I believe, 65 cents in the first offering. And then I think the next offering was 50 cents. And then I think my final participation was to exercise warrants at 40 cents. It might have been 45 cents. So suffice it to say, Marty, everything I bought is at least 10 times higher in price, probably 15, 20 times higher in price than what the offering is right now. Okay, so this raise is going to be completed. They're raising 4 million, maybe 5 million to build out the pilot plant. And this pilot plant is located Can I block this out? Let's see. I don't have anything to block it out with. Guess I can use my Metro card. Or I know what I could do. I can use the stapler. I can use, I want to be careful that I'm not giving out, information that I shouldn't. I can share it with you, Marty. I can share it with people who so what's here, this is in Nevada, and the Carlisle trend, the Carlin trend is over here. It's actually a little north it starts. Above this project is 200 million ounces of silver. And this is where the project is. The plant is here, and this circle is a large caldera. It's a volcano. So that's what the heat and the pressure from that volcano over eons is the source of the gold. There's rumored to be palladium, platinum, and silver there, but I'm just focused on the gold. The plant suffered a earthquake, Nevada did, and so there was a lot of damage. Also, the COVID shutdown slowed everything down. Now, this project was purchased. The original investors came in, guys like me, and about $70 million, Marty, has been put into this project. Most of it was at the beginning. If my arithmetic is correct, 2007 is 14 years ago. Let me see. No, it's 14 plus 3. It's 17 years ago. So a lot of the money was spent in the beginning for acquisition, building the plant, and they did an analysis, third party. It's not, in my opinion, a what's the word? I don't know the word. It's not clear. They did a third party independent study, chain of custody they drilled 37 holes to 200 feet and a handful down to 400 feet. They found the same thing down to 400 feet. but they only measured the resource down to 200 feet. It's 174 million tons of sand with the gold in it. Now, the gold is invisible gold. It's invisible, just like the Carlin Trend, just like the gold that made Newmont Mining move from a penny stock to a huge company. It made Barrick Gold the largest producer of gold, I think, in the country, but certainly Nevada is the largest producing state for gold. Barrick and Newmont joined forces in what's called the Gold Strike Project in the Carlin Trend. And it's in the material I sent you, or sent many. That Carlin Trend is invisible gold. And what my understanding is, told to me by experts, and it's also in an annual report from before, Barrick and maybe Newmont, but I think it was Barrick, is processing sands from the Carlin Trend that have 0.03 ounces of gold per ton recoverable. They process this in large autoclaves. Well, this project in 2000, let me look what date it was. In 2009, 2010, they did a caustic fusion assay, third party, it says, this is company material here. They did a caustic fusion assay of 27 tons. No, doesn't say that here. No, yeah, it does. 24 tons taken from these 37 holes. And they were able to achieve 0.038. So a little bit better than Barrick and Newmont are getting, 0.038. Using 0.038 ounces per ton versus the 174 million tons, it works out to a little over 6 million ounces, 6.6 million ounces of gold. That might be a backstop. I don't know the cost of recovery for gold using caustic fusion. It might not be big enough for Barrick Gold to get interested, but it might. I don't know. But that's what is proven according to the company's this piece of work. However, over the last 4 years, 5 years, during COVID and during the earthquake slowdown, the company's largest shareholder worked on a process that's not caustic fusion. It's a leach method, which he has created. That's the part I'm not allowed to talk about, I guess. But I don't think I could talk about it that intelligently anyway. But using his method over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in the laboratory, he has achieved 0.20 ounces of gold per ton recovery. That works out to, I did all this work this morning for one investor. That works out to 34,800,000 ounces of gold. Oh, I put one too many zeros. But anyway, 34,800,000 ounces of gold. That is huge. There's a project Nova Gold is working on in Alaska and has been and will be. That's 44 million ounces, but that's rough terrain. That's winter. There's difficulty. This could be 35 million ounces of gold, and we could know that within 6 months. Now, the holes are drilled down to 200 feet. If they drill them down, which is a use of proceeds, that is one of their goals, they could drill down to 400 feet under third-party eyeballs And these handful of wells that they've already drilled that low already show the sand material is identical. That could double the resource. So you could go from 35 to 70 million just drilling down where they're highly confident they're going to find additional productive sands. But also the two zones they've drilled in, one's north, one's south, if they drill in between and if they drill outward, you could be sitting on 100 million ounces of gold or much more. This is truly a world-class upside project. Now, why is it taken so long? It's nano gold, just like the Carlin trend. So that's part of the problem. Nobody knows about it. Nobody really knows about it. But it's refractory gold. In addition to being nano gold, it's refractory. That means it has a hard coating, basically. It's coated. Now, these are nano materials. They're smaller than the width of your hair by far. And so the action of these materials in all manner of laboratory situations is not governed by gravity, the Earth's gravity. There may be some gravity in between particles, but in any other situation, if you see the old movies, they shake the pan with the water and the gold falls to the bottom. That doesn't happen here. And what Barrick Gold and Newmont are doing is putting the sand resource in these huge pressure cookers, and they heat it to a massive temperature, and then they're left with 0.03 roughly recovery per ton, 0.03 from the data I've been told. So that can be done here, apparently, but the work shows that if you were to remove that coating and do a better recovery of the particles, rather than using a sledgehammer, maybe as an example, try to use a hammer and chisel. I don't know. Do a more complete, delicate job. That you can get 0.2 ounces of gold, maybe more, by the way. But let's just stick with 0.2 ounces of gold per ton. So the first time they went out and did this process, they used chemistry, and I'm not a chemist. I'm not a chemical engineer. But they used chemistry, and I can remember in high school, valences. I was a straight A student in high school. Doesn't mean anything, just means you're wondering why the hell would I remember a valence? I don't know. I do. I didn't much enjoy chemistry, but I liked my lab partner. And anyway, valences, charges, negative and positive. And I think there's neutral charges too, but negative and positive charges. So they built this whole process and it worked. They built the plant and they went to produce, and the charge, the electric or I don't know, chemistry charge, valences caused by the ground itself and the plant equipment, I don't remember. That was either a positive charge and they needed negative inside of the beaker, inside of the process, or the inside the process was positive and it was negative. It made everything go haywire. So while they could continue to get the 0.038, the desire was to get larger numbers, and the chemistry didn't work because of charges that overwhelmed the process from the ground, from, I guess, the atmosphere. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. So anyway, what has been developed now after much trial and error is what the metallurgist now calls physics. And I can't, that's the part I can't describe, because I'm afraid if I did describe it, I might overspeak. I signed an NDA. I might overspeak, and I don't want to do that. But there's two risks in the project I see. One is they don't raise enough money to build out the pilot plant. I think that's going to be done, no problem, because I'm talking to investors and I know others are talking to investors. I don't think that's the problem. But the biggest risk is, will it scale? Will it go from the laboratory to the pilot plant? And I asked that question, and the answer I got back was really powerful and highly confident. And I believe that they have solved the project, the process. I know the people involved. I'm basing it on my personal interpretation of their language and their body language. It's the only step left. All the R&D's done. All the drilling except for additional drilling is done. The plants, it's the only step. The only step left is to build out the production plant and start producing gold every single day. Once they do that, there's no more risk. There's no more risk in this project. The natural buyer becomes Barrick Gold or Newmont Gold or both together. My view, Marty, of the outcomes is, I guess, 5 outcomes. Let me make sure. It might be 6. I did my thinking last night and my writing this morning. Yeah, I guess there's 6 likely outcomes. I'm so sorry. There's 6 likely outcomes. One is complete failure, and it doesn't work, and didn't work. It doesn't scale up. So in that sense, it's a speculative investment. We'll know it quickly. There won't be waiting around. We'll know it quickly. I'd say we would know it by the end of the year or by the end of first quarter, assuming the monies are raised imminently. And I think they will be. I put the percentage of that complete failure very low. I personally put it at 5% or less chance of complete failure. Another risk is delay, and that is an existing risk. I didn't put it on this list, but there's always disappointment in oil and gas and mining. It's not like selling books out of Amazon. Once you get it running, there's always the chance for a disappointment. Anything could happen. So I would put that risk as just a flip of a coin, that there could be delays. But apparently there's enough people that know the process. They're ready to go. I think we'll be okay. But you got to admit that's a risk. The other risk, I told you there's a risk the money's not raised. I see that as it will. I think the money will be raised very quickly. It's just too good of an upside. You're looking at finding, for $5 million, you're looking at finding to your half $40 billion worth of gold, profit at $40 billion on the low side. I mean, it's just the risk reward is astonishing. And I think big investors who buy yachts or buy companies. Now that gold's breaking out and trading at 2,400 a share, I think that'll go. I've already mentioned that if the pilot plant fails for some reason, I would say that wipes out the investment. I think that's a 5% chance or less. Another real outcome is that the wealthy investors, they're all in their 70s and 80s for the large part, decide to sell the company before the pilot plant goes into production. The company was offered a buyout, and thank God that slowed everything down. Thank God the majority of the investors turned it down. Just to cut to the chase, over time, that would have been worth 20 cents a share. That they turned that down. Would they accept 40 cents a share? 50, 60, $1? Maybe. So I think there is a possibility that the company gets sold at something like 40 cents a share in some manner. I mean, there's just too many variables to tell you how it would be done. But at 40 cents a share, this investment is a convertible note, but it converts at 4 cents. So that would be a 10x return. I would be really disappointed with that result, but that would be a 10x return. And we would know that, I would say, within 6 months, if that were to happen, maybe sooner. I hope it doesn't happen, but that's one outcome. I give that sort of a plus or minus 25% odds of happening. If the company has success at the pilot plant, I think this is the most likely result is they sell the company. They just sell it. We might get an override, we might have a working interest, or they just sell it. If you use the low end value for gold in the ground on historic transactions, and you use sort of a middle range, a successful pilot test, but don't expand it in terms of resource, I think it would give you anywhere from $3.75 a share, almost $4 a share, to as high as $12.50 a share in a sale. So if we just use $4, that is 100 times this investment. And that sale, Marty, I think could happen. The details of that sale could happen within 9 months. Within 9 months. I'm not saying that's when it would settle, but it could happen within that. Once the plant is built, and I think the plant will take 1 to 3 months to fully build out, they can start processing the sand. That could take 1 to 3 months itself. But remember, as they're processing it, they're going to be getting gold. We hope. I believe they will. People talk. That word will start getting out. So there'll be interest in this project. So a sale at, let's call it $4 could be effected within 6 to 9 months. Remember, I said one risk is there's always something. I'm just giving you sort of a target. There could be delays. Another possibility, which is the one I would like, is the company could produce its gold either with project financing or with a joint venture partner. That's what I'd like to happen. And I could make it happen. I could make the introductions that could make it happen. But by the way, I don't think it'd be hard. I think others can do it too. This project at the mid-range with current gold prices, and by the way, the profit per ounce is projected. That's another variable we don't know for sure, is projected right now at today's prices at $2,000 an ounce. The cost of this process is less than $500 per ounce. You have to prove that. That's what the point of a pilot plan is. If they just keep doing tests in the laboratory, they're not moving forward. They've already proven that over and over and over again, what happens in a laboratory. It's now time to produce on a pilot scale plan. Anyway, if they have success and produce it over time, the numbers per share are just out of this world. But let's just stick with $80 a share. But remember, we will have sold probably half the company, or we will have sold the revenue stream. So let's use $40 a share. That's 1,000x in this investment. And that, whilst that income stream will take years to earn, its present value will be known. So it brings the sixth outcome, which could happen in many of these cases. The company is a public company which no longer trades. So it's essentially a private company, which is great. The shorts can't kill it. They can't do anything. But as these results come clear, the stock could start trading again. And that could be a way out. You probably get a discount because the criminals will short. And I think there's pretty high odds that the stock starts trading again if they go with 2 or 3 of these scenarios. It might be that it's bought out so quickly it never trades again. So my time frame on the whole thing, Marty, is sort of 9 months. But there's risks here. And I think they're wrung out. But the reason the stock is available at 4 cents is a weird combination of the big investors are just kind of tired. And they're all old. They're all very old. And the lead investor, not the metallurgist, but the lead investor, he's old enough that his heirs, his sons, have taken away his power of the purse. He can't make this investment. Otherwise, he already would have. He's done it in the past. So it's a unique opportunity for us to participate. I don't think you'd ever see a deal like this. Doesn't mean it doesn't have risk, but you risk 4 cents for either 40 cents, which I give 20 to 30% odds soon, or $4, which I give that scenario. What did I say it was? Yeah, I said maybe up to 60% odds that they just sell the company. And I'm using a low number. It could be sold for more. But at $4, that's 100 times your money, and you'll know right away. Well, when I say right away, I'm talking 9 months. We'll know by the first quarter. You won't have to wait forever. Unless, Yellowstone Park erupts or something. And then the one I like the best, producing it, I actually give that 40 to 60% odds, maybe higher, because once the numbers are staring people in the face, they're going to want to produce it. That's my opinion. So anyway, Marty, I think as we raise money, and I'm working on it, raising the bigger amounts. If I raise $1 million, $2 million, or the guy I'm working with or somebody else. I think the wealthy investors will all come in to participate. So I don't think financing is the risk. I think we're lucky that everything's been on hold a little while so we can get into this. But this is risk capital. This is, as I said it when I started talking, there's a chance of a wipeout. But we're at the end, and I don't put that chance very high. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. This is the same price everybody else is paying. There's no markup. There's no cash payout in it. There's none of that. You get the documents directly from the company. So it's your decision vis-a-vis the documents that you see from the company. The reason I'm showing it is I know people lost money, a lot of money. I think we have to get into gold and silver, but gold's very expensive now. And one way to really leverage up how much gold you own is to own miners. I don't think you should focus on just one miner over time, no more than you should focus on one stock. However, this is one I know intimately. I'm comfortable with the story, and I'm an investor, and I'm in this round with the true good graces of a good Samaritan, and I'm appreciative beyond all measure. My faith in the good and humanity is largely restored, except for the short sellers. So anyway, Marty, I really think the risk reward price is outstanding. As I've already told you, when I invested years ago, and I think I put in $250,000 to $1 million to 350. I hope it's not 400,000, but I think I put, I'm trying not to scare myself, but I think I put 350,000 into this company myself, and I did it at much higher numbers, and I did it over a decade ago. Nothing's changed about the recovery of the gold. Nothing's changed, except that there is a process which I believe in. Doesn't mean I'm going to be right, but I really believe, after talking several times and asking all the questions I could think of, I really believe they have it solved. And I know the gentleman. I've met him several times. Boo birds can come out and say anything, and they do at any time. But what was I saying? Oh, I think owning miners is one step to being a financially independent unit ready for what's coming in the future. And because I've been in this so long, I know that the price of 4 cents it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable that the process works many, 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 many times. I don't know if it's hundreds or thousands, but it just so many times in the lab, according to the gentleman that created the process, he sees no risk in the scale up. Now, of course, what would you expect him to say? But I believe that's true because I've talked to other people involved. But that's the whole punt, isn't it? So we risk 4 cents. The gold's there. I risked much more numbers, much higher numbers. The gold's still there 9, 10, 12 years later. It's just a matter of recovering it in commercial quantities at 0.20 ounces per ton. It could be higher. There's silver. There's platinum, palladium. There's even lithium. But none of that I want you to focus on. Let's just focus on the gold. It's truly a squeeze play type potential, both with the risk but the reward, and it could be life changing. And I think it could replace some of the pain and losses without short selling. And that's why I'm offering. It's not that I'm offering it; the company's offering it, but it's why I'm sharing it. The money in this small round looks like it's going to carry the company for 18 months. It's possible that it will carry the company for 24 months. And that gives so much strength to the company to move forward, raise the 4 or 5 million, produce the gold before they sell the company. So I couldn't be more pleased with the response I've seen. And I'm working with another gentleman. So we're raising money from several sources. But I'm excited about it, Marty. So email me at Farrand, my last name, Farrand, the word balanced, balanced at Gmail if you're interested. Sorry to go on for it so long. Let's see what your comments are on other stocks. I listened to Not With You. Oh man, my messages, it wasn't me this time. I went to the bottom of my messages. My messages were slow. Tomorrow is my daughter's graduation. 6 years old. And Sheriff Popcorn next to her. What a great friend. What a great friend. Yeah, it's not financial advice. That's true. Yeah, I think the silver to gold ratio is already tightened. And I'm so mad at myself that I didn't have a chance to replace the silver I had to sell. But it's still a phenomenal ratio. It's still phenomenal. And I would still expect silver to have 1 or 2 complete collapses in price because they can sell, they being the criminals, they can sell the entire world's production in a year. They can sell it in one trade and no one notices. No one does anything about it. So the indexes are dumping. Garrett, that makes sense to me. It's kind of in slow motion right now, but your point makes a lot of sense to me, Garrett. Garrett says AMC is sort of diluting now or pausing now, but they will rip after they close their offering. That's entirely possible. Let's see where it is. AMC is, it's up 66 cents, 581. I don't own these, and you know I'm skeptical, but I hope people make money. The best guy to listen to is George Donahue on these stocks. And he makes a compelling argument, I'll tell you that. GME's up $15, $16, $48. Roaring Kitty is going to talk after the close tomorrow. So the big thing is, will the hedge funds be getting out tomorrow before he speaks? Or will they be buying? I don't know. Every other stock is flat to down. Wolf is having a nice day. And let me show you two things in my. At first, I got to change this. I got to change it to a shorter comment. I got to give it a shorter comment than that one. Let me see how long that one is. Yep, it's a little bit long. I need a shorter one. How about this one? Yeah. That's a picture of Cutie Pie and Cutie Pie, so we'll use that one. All right, first I want to show you this. Obviously, I used my finger here, but this is our CRT, and it's an algorithmic scale. It's not like the chart I showed you the other day. But you see my green line? This is a very sloppy green line, but you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 tests essentially of that green line. And this is the fifth one at 225. Well, guess what? It pulled back and closed at 207. So maybe you can argue that that's failed. I don't think so. I think that this is the breakout. A pullback is healthy. And you'll see tomorrow or next week, it's going to push through whatever number this is that breaks out of this resistance. 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5. I'm going to guess it's around 2.25, 230, maybe 240, whatever it is. But once it breaks out, you come over on the left-hand side, you can see this bench of trades. They're all in the $3, $3.50 range. There might be a pause there. There might be a pause a little higher, but I don't see, there's no volume down here except when they crushed it. I don't see any reason why, after going sideways for all this time and breaking out of resistance, and remember, when it breaks out, maybe this 375, 350 is a stall. It'll come back and test this resistance, maybe. That becomes support. But I don't see any reason why it doesn't bust out of this both horizontal trend and this amateur rising trend that I have. But I tell you, this thing looks, the MACD has turned positive. This money flow up here is turning positive. I just call your attention. I don't know what's happening, but I call your attention to that. And then I want to show you this letter. This is on MMTLP. This was written, I guess, yesterday. And it's addressed to the Honorable Gary Gensler, Chair, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Dear Chairman Gensler, we write to follow up a previous letter signed by over 70 members of Congress, 70, requesting that the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Stealing and Exchange Commission, review events surrounding Metamaterials Series A preferred shares, MMTLP. As you know, MMTLP was created during a merger between Metamaterials and Torchlight Energy Resources, which, by the way, was an Adina Friedman stock, to provide preferred stock dividends to Torch shareholders. MMTLP shares began trading on the OTC market in 2021. In the summer of 2022, the SEC received and subsequently approved a Form S1 and amendments to spin off a portion of the company, Metamaterials, into a new company, NextBridge Hydrocarbons. Now, under Ann Wagner's oversight and Gary Gensler's mouse of a man regulatory direction, no one cares. Why hasn't this been trading? Why was it shorted to oblivion? Why were perhaps over 1 billion shares of Torchlight MMAT and MMTLP created out of thin air to essentially steal investors' dollars and give them to Goldman Sachs, Gary Gensler? I don't know the answer. Everything I say is in my opinion, everything's in my judgment, and I use Goldman Sachs as a placeholder for the whole corrupt system. However, on December 9, 2022, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, issued a U3 halt on trading in the company's stock, preventing shareholders from making further trades. Since the halt, constituent investors have contacted members of Congress with serious concerns about the spin-off transaction and the subsequent halt on trading. To date, more than 40,000 letters from concerned constituents have been sent to Congress. We have received information indicating that the SEC is investigating events related to MMTLP. Upon completion of your investigation, that's to the Honorable Gary Gensler, we request a briefing with the results of your investigation. We have an obligation to our constituents to provide oversight and ensure our markets are functioning fairly and efficiently. Please respond by June 15th, 2024, with confirmation of your commitment to brief members of Congress and an estimated timeline for the completion of your investigation. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Ralph Norman, Pete Sessions. You might as well add Junk Savvy and Busy Brands and Anna, Queen of Trades, and Syntax and 100%, Angler, and Dirty Mayo, and so many people. It's a huge thing. It's a huge, huge thing. It's a huge, huge thing. I like Mac. Billy Ray. I used to use PCs, but I've been using Mac for so long. Woman, it's not true. I've been dazed and confused for so long. Woman, say it's not true. I wanted a woman, never bargained for you. Some say, and few of us know, the soul of a woman was created below. Dun, 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 dun. I used to drive a convertible Spider, and I worked at Clyde's in Tyson's Corner back when it existed. And I would work. Some days I would work from 6:30 in the morning till 2 or 3 or 4 the next morning. And all day, all I might have had was some grapefruit juice or, next to nothing. But as I'm driving home with my top down, I would play Led Zeppelin, usually as loud as I could stand it, partly to stay awake. Partly I was glad to be free. But I got pulled over so many times. It's so many policemen on Route 7. But I never was speeding, and I was never drinking. So all they could tell me is, hey, pal, could you turn that music down? No one wants to hear Led Zeppelin. They want to hear disco. Okay, talk about platinum gold real soon. Okay, John, I've got to talk about platinum. I know in this project that I just spoke to you about, which I'll stop talking about probably middle of next week because it'll be done. But there's an analyst who I know, and you either are interested in the story or negative. But in his last big report on this company I just talked about, John, he said that the process, and this is just before COVID and the earthquake, the process looks to give 2.20 ounces per ton gold consistently in hundreds of tests. Or instead of gold, his process could give 0.59 ounces per ton of palladium, and which is a 0.35 ounce per ton AU equivalent. So according to this research analyst, they're trying to get the gold and the palladium at the same time. I just leave that out because bully on them if they do it. I'm happy with the gold. But yeah, platinum, the ratios will all go to even, I think. Yeah, I think I know one. I want to talk to the CEO because I think he's taken toxic financing, and I just want to see where that stands. I think Silver Wheaton continues to change. I got to look it up. They changed their name. Will Wheaton. Why do you say Wheaton? Will Wheaton. Wheaton. Silver Wheaton. Stock is now called Wheaton Precious Metals Group. And it's trading at 55.59 WPM. WPM is the symbol. The high on the year is 58 almost, and the low is 38. So it's getting up there. But I believe it pays a dividend. I got to look. Yeah, it pays a 1% dividend. But Silver Wheaton went out, Lion, and they did production financing. I forget the exact word they used, but they would provide financing to small companies, and then they get top line. They get either the stream of production of silver or other metals, or they just get the cash from it as a royalty. So I think Wheaton, what's the name now? Wheaton Precious Metals Group, WPM, at $55 is something to buy for exposure to precious metals all day long. It's a blue chip, boring company, but I could see huge moves in that stock. Huge. WPM. So Dominic is recommending physical silver, 1,000 ounces. And I happen to agree with him. And we'll talk about that in other videos. I wish we had had a winner so we could have talked about it now, because silver's doubled in price. But we didn't have a winner. I started talking about it last year, but I haven't emphasized it. I think, just so people know, I think silver is going to go 1-to-1 for gold. That's an outlandish projection, but that's what I think. That's what I think. So silver, it's going to be volatile. It's completely manipulated, particularly by JP Morgan. We'll talk about the reasons another time. But it has the potential to give you short squeeze rates of return. And I actually think if the crisis, the financial crisis, the depression, and all of that occurs, you may see an opportunity to move from the precious metal asset class, which has been dead in the water, particularly silver. And you might be able to go buy an apartment building for those silver coins, or just part of those silver coins. So I like your advice, Dominic. I happen to agree with you, Brian. If you're buying GME right now, you should buy the calls, but the calls have so much premium in them. To me, you missed the trade. But if you have to be in it, I would just put orders in under the market, but then they'll only fill if the stock's going down. That's how I feel about it. You missed the trade. But if you have to buy it, I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't buy it before the weekend. It's up $15, $46. Roaring Kitty's going to talk Friday night, and they're going to expect him to say something really powerful. And what if he just says, "Hey, I sold it," or I don't know. Maybe you could buy puts and calls, but the premium is really high on both sides. And you're going to tell me I'm wrong because it could go to 800, and I could be wrong. But man. And I suppose looking at that chart, cartoon chart, if it broke out higher than the last spike, that would be pretty powerful. But my instinct is they're not going to let it go past that past spike. And they have all weekend to move the chairs on the deck. I don't know. I don't know, Brian. I just feel, for me, I'm not in it. And I feel like anything I would do with GME would be star-crossed. And for the people that bought the stock and held it for 3 years, I just sure hope it pays off. I hope you become so rich you can come on here and brag about it. I really do. I wish everyone huge, huge returns. Yeah, I have ideas. I like both of those. Dominic. mainly because I trust him. I like Max. Roaring Kitty made 225 million on paper today. If he exercises those contracts, wow. He might be doing it with other people's money. You going to California? Or it's nobody's fault but mine. We can all just ramble on. I guess that's ramble on. Ramble on. I'll come out and visit in California. Well, Ham believes GME should move over into finger. We'll see. Lion, the reason I focus on WPM right now, I think it used to be $14, $8. I wish I had bought it. But their revenue streams are so big, and they'll just expand as prices go up. It is, I used to know it as Silver Wheaton, so it's Wheaton Precious Metals now. It is going to be a cash cow of all cash cows. And what happens with resource plays as an industry is it's the top stocks that move first. And I don't think WPM has even begun to have its day. So I would put them in the first tier of stocks. Then the second tier, once those all have moved, just think like institutions. They're all lemmings anyway. They want to get in the safest ones, get that move, and then eventually they go to the second tier, third tier, fourth tier, fifth tier, sixth tier. And the other advantage of Silver Wheaton, the shorts can't kill that stock. The shorts cannot kill Wheaton Precious Metals. They just can't do it. So that's why I like it. Gladden, I'll make you a $10 bet. All right, I'll tell you what, if it goes 1 for 1, you have to give me an ounce of gold and I'll give you an ounce of silver. I don't know if I picked, I guess I looked at the chart for Northwest Bio at $20. I actually think Northwest Bio is not necessarily going to trade up unless there's a bidding war. Then there'll be some trading. But I think what's going to happen with Northwest Bio, overnight somebody's going to buy them. I don't know who it would be. Johnson & Johnson, Gilead, what. A big company is going to buy them. And if there's a bidding war, are you okay? Are you okay? What happened? Are you all right? I'll try, we'll do this and I will try to WALK. I think my medicine is starting to work. But anyway, Galadon, I would think that Northwest Bio could go to be sold for $80 a share or $60. So if it happens, I think the number is going to be higher than $20. The shorts have it under control and they just destroy the enthusiasm of institutions to buy the stock. But if a big company comes in, and particularly if two companies compete, if two companies compete, they're going to do it based off of their understanding of trials and the potential revenue of the therapy. And so they'll pay up, and it won't be based on the artificial price that the criminals created. They'll go ahead, buy it, and they'll want that revenue stream in their big stock that the shorts can't crush. So I think NWBO could be bought out at, I don't know, $40, $60, $80 a share. And then you won't have time to buy it then. They'll announce it one night. The stock will open up. You know, that's what I think is going to happen. Wow, Galladan. That's what Ham tells you to do, and he's right. The other thing Ham might tell you to do, Galladan, particularly if the stock runs tomorrow, is sell your stock. Don't do it all at once because you got to roll into it. Maybe you can call the trading desk and they can do it for a spread. We used to be able to do that. But get out of the stock and just buy call options. That way you're not risking that much money and you're still exposed to all the upside. Yes, you overpay for the calls. They have a large premium. But let's say, I don't know how many shares you had, but if you sold stock at tomorrow at $75, I don't know what it's going to, but you got all that money off the table and you only had to risk $5 to own the same number of units represented by calls over the weekend. You know that you've taken this gamble with some of the profit, but you don't have to be scared that on Monday it opens at $25. So that's the other part I'm sure he would tell you. Yeah, Joey, you might be right about AMC. Nunya is very smart, and I always assume Nunya is a woman because I knew a Nunya, but I guess I shouldn't make assumptions. But anyway, she says, I too have held GME since 2021. This is a high-risk play, and I would never advise anyone to chase it. It has been a harrowing ride. 12 shares sold. You know, if you listen, David, if you listen to some of the signals that Ham talks about, all right, so it's down to 307, but the bid is 306 and the ask is 319. And they're laying on the ask. Now it's 314. 307,000 shares, probably all crossing. I would guess less than 80,000 of that's real. And it's buying probably, and they're selling fake shares. But Ann Wagner doesn't care. Adina Friedman doesn't care. I was up at Finger's celebration on the NASDAQ. Adina Friedman doesn't care. She really doesn't. But anyway, David, one thing Ham was saying today about Finger is they're trapped and they haven't been able to make it go down. They haven't gotten the volatility into it. And he thinks they're trapped. They're in trouble. The second thing is it looks like Lynn Partners, something's going on. They're not all bragging anymore. And rumors are going around. So one thing that could happen is longs on Wall Street might start doing bull raids on their stocks. It's possible. And the other thing is, I remember, David, is Ham bought 500 call options. Was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? Based on, I think, the idea of a hearing. But man, he put his money where his mouth is. And I can't help hearing some of those things and thinking there might be a trade coming in Finger. I hope it waits because I'd like to be able to participate a little bit, but it's not about me, is it? It's about you guys. I hope you make a ton of money. I hope you make a ton of money. Oh, I agree. I think 12 to 1 would be a number that no one would believe. I think 16 to 1 is the one that people expect, Dominic. But I'll stick by my call. I think it'll go 1 for 1. Maybe just in a spike, but I think it's going to go. That's it, Galadon. You summarize it. You summarize it. You've got it summarized. Well, I might see if I can go to Vegas this month. I've got a really good investor, wealthy investor. She's a good friend of mine too. She lives in Las Vegas, and I'm going to try to show her the gold transaction for the bigger commitment. But there might be some people in there to see, so I might be coming. Exactly, Galladay. Well, they're just trading it from the bid to ask, and it's a wide spread. That's the first. That's what was that senator who used a wide spread in Arizona? They're using a wide spread. It could be. I've said, I've said my cautions, but Chris, I've heard enough positive, and I will say, Chris, to me, it looks like the street is trying to work out of a big short position in at least in GME. Well, Canadian MMTLP yesterday, I listened to the space call with Junk Savvy. She did a great job. Busy Brands did a great job. I don't know if Curtis was on it. I think Ordinary Angler was on it. Might have been one other person, but they all did a great job. And then Mark Bazile was on, and Mark Bazile said twice, but he kept getting cut off. I'm not sure why, but maybe it was just a connection problem. But twice he said that his target is 2,400 a share, and I even think he said his target starts from 2,400 a share. And you know what? It heartened. I was so heartened by that, so heartened, because I agree with him. All right, it's 4:30. I cannot WALK my dog right now because of the heat. So I wish I had if I had a better computer, I could clip some of these things and make shorter videos. But I really want to get this into your head. I really want to get this into your head. So I think I might try to finish chapter 2 right now. You don't have to listen, but on the other hand, you can listen later. You can ask questions. I'll try to answer. So we left off where the next headline was "The History of Monetary Collapse and the End of the Gold Standard." Gold is money. Still, its status as money has been disparaged continually, mostly in the West, not elsewhere, by governments and economists, especially in the period since the International Monetary system collapsed and America ended, the president said, nix on that. And America ended the convertibility of dollars into gold in 1971. 1971. Can you imagine? The monetary collapse in 1971 should have come as no surprise to anyone. The international monetary system actually collapsed 3 times in the 20th century, in 1914, in 1939, and in 1971. And the monetary system came perilously close to collapse in 1998. That's what Putin remembers. That was the run on the ruble caused by the most intelligent guys in the room, long-term capital management. So in 1998 and in 2008, remember George W. Bush? This sucker is going down. Because today's international monetary system is largely based on the US dollar, maybe not for very much longer, a new collapse will be triggered by a collapse in confidence in the dollar and its role as a store of value. This is where I just have a hard time believing that Janet Yellen and Powell can organize a decline in interest rates in the United States. Maybe if we let the other countries go first, we just don't do it as far and we remain the cleanest dirty shirt. And I suppose in a depression, a collapse of commercial commercial building loans outstanding, for example, interest rates can come down, but I don't know. We've got to keep the dollar, the confidence game of the dollar and the confidence game of the US debt going. Okay. Today's international monetary system is largely based on the US dollar. A new collapse will be triggered by a collapse in confidence in the dollar and its role as a store of value. It may be surprising. Still, such collapses do happen every 30 years or so, Based on the monetary history of the past century, we're probably at the end of the useful life of the current international monetary system and fast approaching a new one. This book is 4 or 5 years old. And I read it then. I studied it. Prior monetary collapses have not meant the end of the world. People did not go into caves and start eating canned goods. Monetary collapse meant that the major financial and trading powers of the time sat down around a table and rewrote what they called the, quote, rules of the game, which is a shorthand expression for the operation of the international monetary system. And, you know, I've told you that I think gold has been kept down this long because I think it benefited China. I think China wants to go to that table with the largest gold reserves in the world, not the United States, not Russia, China. China produces gold, but China also buys gold. But China's been buying our debt. Now they're not. They're selling it. And I think China has been a partner in, maybe not intentionally, but not doing anything to disrupt the suppression, in my judgment, of gold prices. Why? I think they want to own more. Lately, they're acting as if they own enough. So it's something to keep an eye on. Okay, so they get together around a table and they come up with the new rules. For example, after the 1914 collapse, there was a monetary conference in 1922 in Genoa, Italy, where the major powers rewrote the rules of the game and attempted to reintroduce the gold standard. After the 1939 collapse, there was a larger, well-known international monetary conference in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, in 1944. That conference rewrote the rules of the game around a dollar gold standard. Then, after the collapse in 1971, President Nixon suspended the convertibility of dollars for gold. There were a series of conferences, the most famous being the Smithsonian Agreement in December of 1971. Numerous subsequent negotiations took place all the way up through to the Plaza Accord in 1985 and the Louvre Accord in 1987, which rewrote the rules of the game once again. The period from 1971 to 1980 was one of temporary chaos as the United States muddled through and moved toward floating exchange rates. It was a dreadful period of economic performance. The United States had 3 recessions between 1973, and the argument can be made it was Nixon, not Carter, but whatever. The United States had 3 recessions between 1973 and 1981. The dollar price of gold went from $35 an ounce to $800 an ounce. John Updike wrote his series of rabbit books. I read the one, Rabbit is Rich. I didn't really like John Updike, but I remember the book. And it was all about gold making him rich. Inflation took off. The dollar's value was cut by more than half during 1973, or I guess since 1971 and 1981. In a decade, the dollar's value was cut in half. The dollar was rescued by Paul Volcker and Ronald Reagan beginning in 1981. Well, excuse me, Jimmy Carter appointed Paul Volcker, not Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan reappointed Paul Volcker. So excuse me for pointing it out. Jimmy Carter brought in the era of higher interest rates by appointing Paul Volcker. I'm sorry, everyone gives him a hard time. I'll say it again. Jimmy Carter appointed Paul Volcker to the Fed. All Ronald Reagan did was reappoint him. Okay, the dollar was rescued by Paul Volcker and Ronald Reagan beginning in 1981. This is when the world moved to a new dollar standard, also known as the King Dollar period. In effect, the United States told the world that even in the absence of a gold standard, the dollar would be a reliable store of value. Until we went woke over the last few years. This meant ending the dollar inflation and making the United States an attractive destination for dollar investments. Volcker's monetary policy, started under Carter, and Reagan's tax and regulatory policy accomplished these goals. I used to argue with him. People used to say to me, his lower taxes and his cutting of regulations helped the United States. And maybe on retrospect, maybe that's true. U.S. trading partners were essentially told they could anchor their currencies to the dollar. The sound dollar standard was successful from 1981 to 2010. And then came folks. Listen, folks. a period characterized by solid growth until 2007 and with long economic expansions in the 1980s and the 1990s. So from 1870 to 1971, the international monetary system used various variations on the gold standard with interruption for wars. For 30 years, from 1980 to 2010, the world did not have a gold standard. We had the dollar standard instead. Now, because of just complete foolishness on the part of folks and many folks, we've accelerated the resolve of Russia, Iran, the southern states, China. Well, anyway, it is what it is. We are where we are. Now, we have no gold standard and no anchors whatsoever in the international monetary system. It should come as no surprise that since 2007, we have been living with confusion, volatility, and suboptimal performance in the markets and in the economy. When the next collapse comes, there will be another such meeting as those held in Genoa in 1922, Bretton Woods in 1944. Investors today need to look ahead and ask, quote, what will the new rules of the game be? Based on their answers or the answers to this question, they can figure out what they should do to construct their portfolios now to protect their net worth when the inevitable turmoil happens. Does that sound like my broken record over the last months, even years? It's all I'm trying to get you to focus on. Protect yourself when the turmoil comes. When the panic comes, it'll run out of energy, but only some people will be left standing. In general, it is believed that President Nixon closed the gold window on August 15, 1971, and the United States has been off the gold standard ever since. 2 generations of students have been rigorously conditioned by policymakers and professors to believe that gold has no role in the international monetary system. The truth is, gold never went away. The power elite stopped talking about it and publicly ignored it, yet they held on to it. If gold is so worthless, why does the United States have more than 8,000 tons? Well, not sure we do, but no one's ever going to find out. Why do Germany and the IMF keep approximately 3,000 tons each? Well, I think they do have that. Why is China acquiring thousands of tons through stealth and Russia acquiring more than 100 tons a year? I think that's happening. Why is there such a scramble for gold if it has no role in the system? It is highly convenient for central bankers to convince people that money is unconnected to gold because that empowers them, central bankers, to print all the money they want. Everyone from Ben Bernanke to Alan Greenspan and others have disparaged gold, saying it plays no part in the financial system. Along with the power to control money comes the power to control behavior and policies. Still, gold is the foundation, the real underpinning of the international monetary system. Gold is making its comeback in the world monetary system. When you look at what's actually going on in the world, as opposed to happy talk you hear on television, Aaron Burnett, it is clear that the world is already on a shadow gold standard and is moving back to a more formal gold standard, treating gold as money. We are seeing signs of this already. It's not just a possibility for the distant future. This book was written 4 or 5 years ago. The evidence that gold is moving back toward the system's center is clear, and it's happening for a number of reasons. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, is the third largest gold holder in the world. Number one is the United States, maybe. Number two is Germany, and number three is the IMF. It is likely that China is actually the second largest gold holder, although its true holdings are not publicly disclosed and are difficult to confirm. The IMF plays a pivotal role in the gold monetary system with far more power and influence than one might assume based on its technocratic and bureaucratic demeanor. The IMF likes to posture as a benign friend to small emerging countries. In reality, it's more like a large rapacious corporation that makes a donation to charity every now and then, just to show how generous it is. The IMF was created at the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. It took a few years to get it up and running in the late 1940s and early 1950s. It started as a swing lender for wealthy countries experiencing short-term balance of payment deficits. Considering a country running on a balance of payment deficits year after year, consider one that runs a balance of payment deficits year after year. One of the ways to fix the deficit would be to cheapen its currency to make exports more competitive. But cheapening the currency was not allowed under the Bretton Woods fixed exchange rate system. Instead, the IMF would provide a loan to you to tide you over while you made structural reforms in your economy. Such reforms would attempt to lower unit labor costs, improve productivity, or improve the investment climate, whichever was necessary to get the current account back in surplus. Once the capital account was in surplus, the swing loan from the IMF could be repaid. In extreme cases, the IMF allowed devaluation, but only after all other monetary and structural solutions had been exhausted. The swing lending system broke down in the late 1960s and early 1970s when the United Kingdom steeply devalued its sterling against the dollar and the United States suspended gold convertibility. The fixed exchange rate system died soon afterward. Since then, we have had floating exchange rates. After the 1980s, the IMF wandered into the wilderness almost for 20 years with an uncertain mission. In the 1980s and early 90s, it acted as a lender to emerging markets because its original mission of establishing exchange rates under the Bretton Woods Agreement was gone. The IMF's reputation suffered badly in the 1997 to 1998 Asia financial crisis. There was blood in the streets, and not metaphorically. People were killed in riots in Jakarta, Indonesia, and Seoul, South Korea. Many people to this day, most famously Nobel Prize winner Joe Stiglitz, attributed this financial crisis to bad advice from the IMF. By 2000, the IMF was like a whale which had washed up on the shore and could not get back to its mission in the sea. No one quite knew what they were doing and how they should be doing it. By 2006, there were public calls to abolish the IMF. Then a funny thing happened on the way to the IMF's demise. We had a global financial crisis in 2008, and suddenly the IMF was back in the game. It became the de facto secretariat of the G20 club of the most powerful developed and emerging market countries. The G20 acts as kind of a board of directors with the IMF as staff and agency to implement the will of the board. The IMF has its own governing board, yet interestingly, if you look at that membership by country, there's a lot of overlap with the G20 membership. The G20 member countries and the 24 member countries of the IMF Executive Committee are by and large the same people. The G20 was a group of heads of state that didn't have a staff, while the IMF has a ready-made staff. Since 2009, the G20 Since 2029, the G20 summits have worked hand in glove with the IMF technical capabilities, staff, and analysts. New lending facilities have become highly politicized, as seen in the Ukraine and in Greece. The effect is the IMF always has been a rich countries club. The IMF voting mechanism requires 85% vote to make any significant changes, such as a change in its articles or to approve a major lending initiative. The United States has over 16% of the votes, which means that if all other countries combined voted against the United States, it still wouldn't be enough to overcome the United States objections. None of this is by coincidence, of course. The United States has always been the largest voice in the IMF, and the IMF headquarters building is, survey says, right next to the World Bank in Washington, D.C. One of the big governance issues in the international finance world now involves changing these voting arrangements. If you approach the issue in terms of how much your GDP is as a percentage of world GDP, and compare that with your IMF vote, rich countries are overweighted and emerging markets are underweighted. China is a good example. China accounts for about 14% of global GDP, roughly 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Yet its vote in the IMF until recently was less than 5%. Legislation to give China a larger voice was passed by the United States Congress in 2015. Who contributes to Congress? Recognition of China's rightful place in the IMF hierarchy is a quid pro quo by the United States in exchange for China's good behavior in the battle over currency manipulation against the US dollar. Is this running out? We'll see. Now, the IMF is back to its original mission of lending to rich countries, mostly bailing out Europe, where the overwhelming majority of the IMF's money is directed. The bulk of the IMF money is not going to Botswana, Mali, or Jamaica. It's going to Poland, Greece, Portugal, Ireland, and for political reasons, the Ukraine. This new lending spree requires new sources of funding. For the IMF itself. If you're going to lend money, where do you get the money to lend? I apologize. Banks can take deposits, pledge assets to central banks, or create money out of thin air. Banks can take deposits, pledge assets to central banks, or create money out of thin air. The IMF doesn't have a teller window where you can make a deposit. Still, it does borrow the money. It issues notes. Interestingly, these notes are denominated in dollars. They're denominated in special drawing rights, SDRs, worth about $1.38 as of 5 years ago, although the SDR value fluctuates with the market. What is a special drawing right? Well, it's the world's money, but not the kind you carry around in your pocket. You can't go to an ATM and withdraw a bundle of SDRs. Still, SDRs are money, and they play an increasingly important role in global finance as the dollar's power declines. There's actually a trading desk inside the IMF which can swap SDRs for other hard currencies. Here's a simple example of how it works. In 2029, the IMF issued 182.7 billion special drawing rights, equivalent to about $255 billion at current exchange rates 5 years ago. The way it issues them is in accordance with a quota, which is simply the word it uses for a country's share. If I have 5% quota at the IMF, and the IMF is issuing 100 billion SDRs, then I'm going to get 5 billion SDRs, or 5% of the total issue. Many IMF members had quotas, yet didn't need the SDRs, and just wanted other hard currencies instead. Hungary is a good example. Going back to the early 2000s, Hungarian banks offered customers mortgages in two currencies. They could take a loan in the local currency, which is in the forint, or they could take the loan in Swiss francs provided by European banks in Vienna or Zurich. And that could fund the loans. Swiss franc mortgages were about 2%, and forint mortgages were about 9%. So most of the borrowers took Swiss franc mortgages, assuming the exchange rate would remain fixed, but it didn't. The forint collapsed, and suddenly mortgage debt relative to the borrower's local income increased dramatically. Default skyrocketed. If you are Hungary and the IMF gives you SDRs, your reaction is that you really need Swiss francs, so your central bank can help the local banks repay the interbank loans. Now you call the IMF trading desk and say, offer me dollars for my SDRs. The IMF desk will call China and say, do you have a bid for SDRs? China says, yes, we do. We will forwint. No, yes, we do. China will send dollars to the IMF. China will receive SDRs in return, while Hungary will get the dollars. Hungary will sell the dollars to buy Swiss francs and then use the francs to help Hungary's banks. That's the way to turn your SDRs into another hard currency if you need to. The IMF does not issue SDRs except in liquidity crises. The next time there is a global liquidity crisis, it will be bigger than the capacity of the Federal Reserve and other central banks to contain. The Fed has used up its balance sheet, used up its dry powder, if you will, dealing with the last crisis. It has not been able to unwind its balance sheet, and it's unlikely that it will be able to do so for a decade. This was written 5 years ago. The same is true of other central banks. They have no further capacity to print money without destroying confidence. They might have the legal capacity to print more, yet they are at the limit of what they can credibly do. But we're still doing it anyway. In such a new liquidity crisis, the world would turn to the IMF and would be re-liquefied by the issuance of SDRs. That process may work without impinging on confidence because so few understand it. This massive SDR issuance will be highly inflationary. Hear that? It will be highly inflationary in dollar terms. We simply have to own resources. Still, politicians in Washington will simply point the finger at the IMF as an unaccountable agency. One effect of a massive SDR issuance will be to hinder capital formation by destroying the real value of dollar-denominated assets. The only shelter in the storm will be hard assets, including gold. Astute individual investors are positioning their portfolios that way today, and so are major powers such as Russia and China. What if people lose confidence in the IMF and the SDR solution? Who bails out the IMF? Right now, there isn't going to be anyone who can bail out the IMF. Turning to the IMF is not kicking the can down the road. It's more like kicking the can upstairs from private debt to sovereign debt to multilateral debt issued by the IMF. The IMF is the penthouse. You can't kick the can any higher. And the IMF's source of strength is its 3,000 tons of gold. And gold held by the IMF members in the United States and Europe. This is why I keep returning, Jim Rickards, to the subject of gold, and why I calculate the gold to money ratios and the gold to GDP ratios and develop dollar price projections of $10,000 per ounce of gold or higher, $10,000 per ounce of gold or higher. If confidence in national paper money is lost and you try to bail out the system with a different kind of fiat money, specifically the SDR, what good does that do? If it works at all, it will only be for two reasons. One, almost nobody understands it. And two, we won't have SDRs in our pockets. SDRs will be used by, for, and between countries, not individuals. SDRs won't be transparent. They will exist, and the highly inflation, SDRs will exist and will be highly inflationary if printed in sufficient quantities. Still, no one will actually see them because they are the most technical and abstract form of money ever created. If SDRs work, it will be in part because so few people understand them. Still, if people do understand, they are likely to lose confidence in the dollar. In that scenario, the only recourse is gold. Countries around the world are acquiring gold at accelerating rates in order to diversify their reserve position. This trend, combined with the huge reserves, maybe, of gold held by the United States, the Eurozone, and the IMF, amounts to a shadow gold standard. The best way to evaluate the shadow gold standard among various countries is to use the ratio of gold to the gross domestic product. This gold to GDP ratio can easily be calculated using official figures and compared across countries to see where the real gold power resides. The big winners, the real center of gold power in the world, are the 19 nations that make up the Eurozone and issue the euro. Their gold as a percentage of GDP is over 4%. The United States ratio is about 1.7%. Russia's ratio, 2.7%, higher than the United States. Russia has more than 1/8 the amount of gold the United States has, yet its economy is only 1/8 the size of the United States economy. So the ratio is higher. Russia is one of those nations who are acquiring more gold and is set on matching the Eurozone. Japan, Canada, and the United Kingdom are major economies, yet their gold ratios are anemic. They're all less than 1%, Japan, Canada, and the UK. The most interesting case is China. The official gold reserves of China as of July 2015 stood at 1,658 tons. Yet we know from various reliable sources, including mining production and import statistics, that their actual gold stock is closer to 4,000 tons. I've spoken to refiners, that's Jim Rickards, and secure logistics firms, people who actually handle the physical gold, in addition to official sources. And I have included their information in my estimates. On the whole, there is enough credible information available to support the estimated 4,000 tons that China holds as the minimum. It is entirely possible China has considerably more than 4,000 tons of gold. China, like Russia, is acquiring gold so that it will have a comparable ratio to the US of A and Europe. The gold to which is, I would guess, primarily Germany. The gold to GDP ratio will be critical when the monetary system collapses because it will form the basis of any new monetary system and the new rules of the game. In any monetary reset, countries will come together, as I have described, and sit around a table. One can think of that meeting as a poker game. I hope it's woke. It'd be really unfair if it's not woke, so we can get the best outcome. One can think of that meeting as a poker game. When you sit down at the poker table, you want a big pile of chips. Gold functions like a pile of poker chips in this context. It doesn't mean that the world automatically goes to a gold standard. It does mean that one's voice at the table is going to be a function of the size of one's gold hoard. There are only about, listen to this. There are only 35,000 tons of official gold in the world. 35,000 tons. Let's just divide that by 30. Is it 3,200? I should know that off. Oh yeah, it's 32,000, sorry. 32,000. So if there's if there's 35,000 tons of gold times 32,000 ounces, there's 1.1 billion ounces of gold in the world. And I just told you that company I mentioned to you, they might have a tenth of that. This little company in Nevada that you can buy for 4 cents a share. Another way of looking at it, in the mid range, you can buy the gold for $1 an ounce in that company. Not for long. I think it'll close next week. But they might have a tenth. They might have a tenth of the world's official gold reserves. Okay, there are only about 35,000 tons of official gold in the world. The phrase official gold means gold owned by central banks, finance ministry, and sovereign wealth funds. This does not include gold jewelry and gold held in private hands. China's acquisition of more than 3,000 tons of gold in the past 7 years, imagine what they have now, represents almost 10% of all the official gold in the world, a huge shift in gold reserves in China's favor. This buying program explains China's non-transparency. The gold market is liquid, but thinly traded. If China's intentions and actions were fully disclosed, the gold price would likely be much higher. This is always true when a huge buyer shows up in a thin market. China wants to keep the gold price as low as possible until it completes its acquisition program. I haven't read this book in 5 or 6 years. China is trying to acquire enough gold so that when the international monetary collapse comes and the world has to recut the deal, China will have a prime seat at the table. Countries like Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom with small gold to GDP ratios will be seated far away from the table, along the walls. These small gold powers will essentially be spectators in the global monetary reset and will have to content themselves with whatever system the United States, Europe, Russia, and China devise. In this scenario, Germany will speak for Europe. Wow, this guy reads my mind. So the new system will be based on a US, German, Russian, Chinese monetary condominium administered by the IMF. These major gold powers are already preparing for that outcome. This is what I mean when I refer to the shadow gold standard. Again, that's the United States, Germany, Russia, and China. Conclusion: gold is money. Despite disparagement by policymakers and economists, it will remain as a store of wealth par excellence and continue to play an integral part in the world's monetary system. In part, we can thank the French. It's like those French have a different word for everything, who took a stand at the IMF in 1975 and insisted on a role for gold in official reserves, even when it was no longer a monetary reference point at the time. Academic economists don't seem to care about gold. It is mostly ignored and never studied in a monetary context. Still, simple dream comes round again. Still out here. I can't remember the words. Still, gold has never completely gone away. It matters behind the scenes. Gold is still poised in the reserves of the international monetary system and will be even more important in the years to come. Understanding gold provides us with a frame of reference for understanding the future of the international monetary system. In the chapters ahead, we'll look at how smart investors are investing in physical gold to protect themselves from the complex economic forces and instability we face in the 21st century. Okay, that's the end of chapter 2. And before I go, I'm going to look at one item. Okay, so according to somebody, Wikipedia, that's too bad. I don't trust them. But according to Wikipedia, the United States is number 1 with 8,133 tons of gold. Germany is number 2 with 3,352. The IMF is number 3 with 2,814. Italy is number 4, but remember it's part of the Eurozone, with 2,451. France is number 4. I guess the IMF, they don't really count. Anyway, France is number 4 if you don't count the IMF, is 2,436. Russia is number 5 with 2,332. This is as of May 2024. China is 2,262. Switzerland has 1,000. Japan has 800. India has 800. Netherlands has 600. Turkey has 570. And then let's just look at world GDP right now. This is assuming the dollar stays where it is. Number 1 is United States, 25 trillion. China, 18 trillion. Japan, 4 trillion. Germany, 4 trillion. India, 3 trillion. The UK, 3 trillion. France, 2.7 trillion. Russia, 2.2 trillion. Canada, 2.1 trillion. Italy, 2.0. Brazil, 1.92. Australia, 1.6. South Korea, 1.6. Mexico, 1.4. España, 1.4. Indonesia, 1.3. Saudi Arabia, 1.1. Netherlands, 1 trillion. Turkey, 900. Switzerland, 808. That's the GDP. All right, I'm going to see what things you've said to me, if anything. Oh, is the price $51? Notice how it didn't happen when you can sell. I tell you guys, call me suspicious. Yeah, GME is $51. Fingers, $315. Pretty powerful on GME. And I don't know, Lion, is it making new highs compared to just, a couple, 3 weeks ago? Maybe it is. Can the market crash now? I don't think so. But if the bond market crashes, yes. I don't think the market's going to crash. They're going to run it up to numbers you'd never think of. Wow, I didn't know that, Dominic. I'll have to look that up. Any update on GTII? No update. Check with Richard Hoffman. The lawsuit's proceeding. He just did a video on YouTube. And that's it. Yeah, she doesn't have many light bulbs up in her head, or she plays dumb. Wow, Dominic, you're pretty smart. I should have you on someday to. Oh, Angela turned 7. ARCA has a price target of 1,742 on GME. That's pretty impressive. Celeste is the best. Where do I think it'll go in a squeeze? I don't think it's going to squeeze. I think they're going to control it. But I will say, Jeff, if it squeezes, I think the system collapses. I think if it in fact has it in itself to squeeze, I think you'll see 1 or 2 prime brokers go down, and it could go to the bloody moon. It could go to numbers I can't even comprehend in a squeeze. So that's kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, isn't it? All right, I'm gonna sign off. I know I bored everybody, but we'll leave it there. I wish the world peace. I wish each of you peace. And wish all the people we know collectively who have died, I wish them peace. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. When I get a new computer, I'll learn how to chop out those little things into smaller segments. So over and out.